Welcome to the Trout Show, where stories of passion, purpose, and possibility come alive. Today we spotlight concert pianist, composer, and visionary Kimball Gallagher, a true pianist without borders. From a groundbreaking 88 concert tour that spanned every continent to the founding of 88 International, Kimball has transformed music into a powerful force for change. Through 88 International, he empowers secondary school students across Tunisia, Senegal, Morocco, Myanmar, and beyond to lead, create, and reshape their communities through student-run music clubs and youth leadership. Join us as Kimball Gallagher shares the journey from Carnegie Hall to classrooms around the world, and the enduring belief that music can change lives.
The first question I have for you is this, and that is, so here you are, a well-known concert pianist, playing Carnegie Hall. People love your music, your styles, and all that stuff. And then you said, you know what I think I need to do? I need to go to another country and set up an organization to help kids love music. Why did you get that started in the first place?
Well, I think the straightforward answer is just music is always a connecting bridge between people. And so as artists, almost any type of music one plays, that's kind of the fundamental, one of the fundamental goals is just connecting with people. But actually, I started with something called the 88 Concert Tour. And it's just meant to be a playful name because there's 88 keys on the piano.
Keys on the piano, right.
And so this was a self-managed global tour that ended up going to all 7 continents. And what I was trying to explore at first is, as you may know, a lot of early, you mentioned Bach, but a lot of classical music like Mozart, including Bach, or Mozart piano music, or Chopin, or Beethoven, or Schubert, a lot of it was conceived to be played not in large concert halls like we might imagine, but actually in small, more intimate spaces like private homes and things. And my idea of the 88 Concert Tour was to do a world tour, but of small homes in general. That was the intent. And so having this intent, it led me, and I like that because you talk to the audience more freely, it's much less formal, it can provide a much more immediate experience, a much more intense emotional experience for the audience for the music because they're right next to it. You know, in a lot of theaters you need, it's a cliche, you need binoculars to see it if you're far away.
Yeah,
but
I
there's
understand.
It's a certain distance. So by doing this, my intent was really also to connect much more with audience members, and those audience members would then in turn kind of help me find new possibilities of where to play. And that led to playing not only in homes, but in conventional venues as well as numerous schools. And as I started to travel, it's just a natural thing that the audience members in these home concerts thought of. They thought of, you know, their kids, or like, oh, could you go to my kid's school in the afternoon before the concert? So the education piece, working with youth, is just a natural extension of playing, you know, concerts. And I'd always been teaching private piano lessons and things like that. So I always saw the role as teacher and performer not to be two totally separate and distinct things, but things that were intimately linked. At least for me, different musicians would have a different opinion on that, of course. But yeah, as I traveled, especially traveling outside of the U.S., but also in the U.S., it was always evident to me that while it's always nice to have a concert, the need, if you will, was, globally speaking, was really just to, you know, can you come do a workshop? Can you do a masterclass? And after a while, it's like, well, it's nice that you came and did a masterclass and had in some cases, like this small music camp for 10 or 20 students, but you know, we need a program for 10,000 students or 5,000 students. And so it was really this organic process of kind of, you know, in a way, barnstorming, you know, doing just the usual tours, and then seeing the need, and then going to places again and again, and noticing that if I really want to make an impact from an educational perspective, you need to be working sort of at an so-called institutional level. You need to have an organization. You know, that's how you can make partnerships with other organizations, apply for different types of grants, and be sort of a viable actor. You know, as an individual, one can't necessarily do that all the time. And so that's really that was the sort of natural process that occurred. And one of the countries in particular that I like to highlight is in Tunisia, where there was, of course, a revolution in 2011 and led to the so-called Arab Spring. And there was an education minister at around 2015, and he said, and I had been performing in Tunisia and teaching in Tunisia a lot, and this minister said, we need to have a piano in every school. We need to revive our cultural clubs. And all my friends there were like, you got to talk to this minister. He's talking about pianos and cultural clubs. And this is not a typical discourse for a Tunisian minister necessarily to have.
I would think not, yeah.
So long story short, that was how one of our education programs got started, really from this need to revive these after-school culture clubs. And then we ask ourselves all these questions. Well, what is the program going to be? How is it going to work? So I could talk like this for a week. I think.
Oh, I understand. But here's the thing that I think that I thought about when I was reading about the organization, and that is, first off, you said it. I've been a musician my whole life too. Obviously, playing a little bit different instrument than you do, but there are people, and you, especially what you play. There are no lyrics per se, so music is international. It doesn't matter. And I've had the privilege of interviewing people throughout the world that are musicians. Everybody's the same way. But the one thing I think I like about this is the fact that it takes out, and the world is this way, it takes out the politics of the world. Because kids, as you know, they don't care about politics. They don't care about that. And kids, what I learned about being at the Boys and Girls Clubs, they don't pay any attention to race. It's just another kid. So when I saw this and saw these kids, and I watched a couple of videos and things like that, and see the joy that they have as an instrument, as a person that's played your whole life, we can all go back to remember when we first started, how difficult it was. And we also remember the time when we succeeded, whether it was playing 3 chords on a guitar or play a short little Bach piece. So I kind of envision these kids working together, and that success brings happiness. Definitely. And it changes everything as far as economic situations. You don't think about that. You're just over there to provide them the pleasure of writing or doing music. I'm sure you've seen that over the years that you've done it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we think of ourselves as doing sort of, not to sound lofty about it, but it's sort of like human development with music, because we're giving kids, as you know, you mentioned the Boys and Girls Club, and it's very similar. A lot of the kids we work with, first of all, they do all different types of genres of music. I may be a classical musician, but in our program, they play guitar, they play cajon, they play oud, they play traditional instruments, they sing in many different languages, and they create their own music. And for most of the students, this is the only time they've even been asked to express themselves, right? Because in the various countries where we work, there isn't a lot of space for the so-called voice of the youth to come out at all. It's usually like, you just have to go memorize things or something like that. And even music education is like that. Right. Even if there are some music education, it's more like rote learning rather than creation. And so we focus a lot on the creation, which leads to some of those really positive impacts, self-esteem going up, number of friendships, sincere, high-quality friendships going up, all these memorable moments that groups are creating when they have a performance or when they make a recording or when they overcome, the numerous obstacles that they have to go through in order to do the activities we have asked them to do, namely create and write songs. And then, this sort of crystallizing the expression of their group, which really represents something that's important to those kids.
The question I had too was, do you have relationships? I know you've got all these different countries set up these different organizations. Do they talk amongst themselves? Like Tunisia talks to whatever country they want to talk to. Do they have that interaction?
To some extent, yes. We're trying to nurture that. The first step is actually nurturing it inside of a country, because even Tunisia, it seems on the map pretty small, but it's quite regional. In other words, you'll find kids from one region and you'll find out they never met kids from another region. So that's kind of like the first, I don't want to say barrier because it's pretty easy, but they still have cliches about the way people are in that other place, and so once they start
Within their
communicating with
country,
each other,
right? Within their country. Okay.
Yeah, so that's sort of the first kind of network to nurture.
Right.
And yes, they do. And they meet each other and they don't know each other. They find out they were both in for example, a Tunisia 88 or a Morocco 88 club. There can be like this instant bond, like you were talking. And now we are working a little bit on how do we link together the various clubs that we have from country to country. And of course, that's a different exercise than within country to a certain extent. But yes, the short answer is yes, and we're trying to do that more, encourage that more.
Well, that's no different in the United States. Southern people not liking New Yorkers. It's no difference.
I'm a Bostonian, but I lived in New York for a long time, but I went to school in Houston at
I
Rice
saw that.
University.
You went to Rice, didn't you?
Yeah. So I have a lot of great memories of Texas. Of course, I love Texas.
Well, as a native, we like that. Come back anytime.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Unless you're from Oklahoma and it's like, wait a minute, just a second. People don't understand us Texans. You have to be a Texan to understand us. And we're very egotistical about it. So when I hear people in New York talk about politics in Texas, I just laugh like, oh, yeah, you don't have a clue.
I think that's the correct response, I think.
Well, it's like people in Boston and, Yankees versus the Sox. So,
Yankees versus the Sox. Yes.
So, you know how that goes.
Heart. I do.
Well, hey, and you've done it long enough now, and I was reading about this, that you've actually created mentors for the younger kids that are coming up.
Absolutely.
And where do you see, though, as you've grown these kids, do any of them get in, I hate to say this like this, but do any of them get into the music business, so to speak, or take it, whether it's just local or something, that's what they end up doing for a livelihood?
Yes, I would say 5 to 10%, go on to do music studies in university, or they join, they do. They're part of orchestras, they're part of groups, they're part of bands, they try to have their own initiatives. There's a strong number. Yeah, and we kind of pride ourselves on having that aspect, but we also have students that do a whole number of other activities, economics, medicine, engineering, communications, architecture, and we love that because, those are also people who love music, who've had very meaningful experiences in their own lives with music and with the arts more broadly, and then, they attend, musicians need audience, right? So our goal is more about getting people involved in music in whatever way is appropriate to them. And for some, obviously, it's to become a musician, and for others, it's a beautiful experience. Some of the people in our programs, the most talented ones, they tend to be talented in a lot of areas, and so they're very, quote unquote, in demand. A lot of the people who have some of the best talents in music end up still going into other non-musical fields. Yeah. All kinds of life paths.
So you have all these countries. Is there a common thread? I had to look up Tunisia to see what the language was, because I had no idea, because a lot of times French and all that stuff, and like Morocco. But is there a common language? I mean, obviously you probably picked up some of the Arabic or whatever, to be able to relate with them. But do all of them kind of speak the same language? I mean, obviously English is what we want to have them speak, but that's probably not the case in a lot of these countries. Well, I mean, I was talking to... Yeah, go ahead.
No, English is pretty popular. I mean, it really, there's a huge range. There isn't a really a straightforward answer to that. Believe it or not, in a country like Senegal, for example, they have so many different national languages. Like up to 28, so I don't even know how many languages they speak.
Yeah.
But we do have, I was going to say, one common language they speak is we have some very basic terminology in our program that is used across programs. Things like, it might sound silly, but the word club, the word member, the word leader, stuff like that. So then, who's the leader of your club? And then that means something to people in our program. We're not trying to create, this deeply like cultish coded language, but we have some basic terms that refer to certain things within our program that I think there's a common understanding. We talk about executive alumni. We have different squads, like the media squad. They manage the media. The leadership training squad. They become leadership trainers. The creativity training squad. And so this is sort of the common, and those terms also represent, for some, the path that they followed within our program. Maybe in the first year they were a simple member, the next year they become a leader, then later they become an executive alumni, then they go on to be a leadership trainer themselves. That's one of the transformative aspects in our program, actually, that's very interesting. When somebody participates in the program and then realizes, I myself could potentially have a very powerful impact on my own community or in my own right. And this is part of that real growth element you see, especially in teenagers or young adults, when it's not only about them, they can make impact on others. And this is how they're building community.
Well, you said this earlier about playing in smaller venues. One of the things I always admire about musicians I interview is that they can bring out an acoustic guitar and sit down in front of 200 or 300 people and hold their own for an hour and a half. That to me is really cool, because you can't do that unless you're kind of talented to do it. So you've recognized that too. And also, I mean, as a rock blues musician, do I want to play in front of 16,000 people? Sure, I would. But there's also the difference. But you don't know anybody after the first row. You can't see them anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know that. You played like that.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
like, okay, who's that guy I'm going to sing to in the front row? Because that's the only one I can talk to right there.
That's right.
And then when you go into a smaller venue and you can be closer to it, then it changes the way you think too. But I bet you didn't think that as you grew this, that you'd actually had a impact within the community as far as developing leaders. I mean, and I'm not talking about people that are leading music, but they start having, you can start seeing, I mean, I've always been a big believer that people are born to be leaders. You can train people to be leaders. It's kind of like people that have it when it comes to music. You either have it or you don't. You can play, but you either have it or not. I bet you didn't see that coming, that all of a sudden you see these people grow and then they're the next thing you know, oh no, he's the ministry. Wait a minute, he started in our club 15 years ago. He's working for the ministry, whatever, fill in the blank.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've really grown with is because I was really just like a musician, study. My main focus is how am I playing, and then as I've grown, I've realized that music can play a role in, like you were saying about the Boys and Girls Club. It can play a very important role just in the development of any human, and so as we've built our programs, we've actually found that what I'm calling leadership, which is really just creating cohesion in a group, making sure everyone participates in a group and they're sort of committed to the same purpose. This is creating that sort of fertile territory where so many creative things can happen. Mm-hmm. And we've tried to do that systematically, even at scale. And that's where really wonderful things can happen, because it sort of creates this healthy competition and everyone's doing it, this type of sensation. And so I think that's the thing that I didn't see coming, is the role of music to provide something far beyond just the music itself, which is still the tool and the central focus, but to see so many other ways that these human beings are able to grow through the process.
What I thought about too is the fact is that, we had the soccer situation over here and all the people came over from all over the places. I'm sure you saw it where people came from other countries, goes, I didn't know this was like this in America. Yeah. Well, this is really cool. And a lot of them ended up in Texas. They're like, who eats this much food? What's barbecue?
Exactly.
But so here's what I thought about was, I don't know how we don't know because I'm not there. All we hear about different countries is what the media feeds us. Okay. And I've traveled some. I just know that people are pretty much people no matter where you go. So just pretty much the same. But my point is this. I would assume, because of what they've heard about America, that kind of probably probably gets a little bit softer because you're an American. You don't talk about, there's no reason to talk about politics. All of a sudden they're not like, well, maybe it's America guy and America's not as bad as I was told. I mean, I assume you probably felt that.
Well, let's see. I mean, most of the kids, if you told them, most of the kids that I've run into in most of the countries where we have programs, and if you tell them they're going to come to the US, it's still, they would see that as a amazing opportunity.
Oh yeah.
So the general, let's say, soft power, also they all know American music, basic American. They all know Guns N' Roses and Michael Jackson and Billy Joel and you mentioned the Beatles earlier.
Yeah.
Different groups. It depends on the country. There's some, in North Africa, I think everyone knows those things, those different various artists I mentioned. But in West Africa, it's a little different. They're more oriented towards, I don't know, different types of music. This is African artists as well. But yeah, I'm just trying to say, I think there is tendencies, like in Tunisia, it's kind of a running joke. Everyone says that I work for the CIA, but they say it tongue in cheek. But I'm not kidding. I get asked that question every single day because in their imagination, it's like they make it sound really weird. Wait, so you're a classical pianist, you're from New York, and you came to Tunisia to start music clubs? You're obviously working for the CIA. And in their line of thinking, that's like the only explanation, right? And it's like, I try to tell them, and then I make fun of them. I was like, yes, we've noticed how you hold the pencil in your right hand, and then you switch, and you stuck your tongue out every single time that you, I don't know, whatever. I haven't gotten any offers from the CIA. I wish I. So yeah, but I think we work with ministries of education. So there is the content of our program is completely non-political, but the sort of framing around it and what we have to do to get the program started does have some, because as I'm a foreigner in the countries that I'm working, and we have to create partnerships with people and entities and governments within those countries. And in the past, a lot of our funding has come from other governments. So there are kind of, one does have to take into consideration a little bit what is the relationship between country A and country B, depending on what you're talking about. And you don't need to be an expert, but you don't want to be completely blind to points of sensitivity and which word choices to use. There's a little bit of finessing that often has to happen. And then each education system kind of has their norms. And this is an interesting point. To give an example, in Tunisia, there was a period after the revolution where free speech was an enormous value, very similar to how we understand it in the US. And that played a huge role in songwriting, because it was like, well, now the youth can say whatever they want. So they're going to be bold and say whatever they want. Of course, there's still enormous pressure from parents and teachers to kind of conform in certain ways. Certain styles of music are seen in a certain, even music itself in some regions of Tunisia is seen kind of as, you'll have, it sounds ridiculous, but in some rural areas, the parents will be like, oh, they would say to another parent, oh, I'm so sorry, I heard your child got involved in music. Like it was some terrible thing, right? Because that's their understanding, it's a distraction from school, or it stirs the emotions too much and you're out of control. I don't know, something like that. These types of things exist. Yeah, but still in Tunisia, I would say there's a really strong sense of freedom of speech. We can say whatever we want. In the Gambia, they're very socially active, so there's a habit of youth coming out and speaking their mind on social issues, whether it's immigration and they're not doing it for political purposes per se, but it's like, well, we know that it's not good to burn trees down, because a lot of people were chopping down trees to get the firewood or whatever, and don't do that. So here's all the reasons not to do that. And they would put that into their song because that's kind of one of the topics that they have around them. In other places, like in Morocco, it's a kingdom, so they have a king. So there's a very strong kind of top-down, this is the acceptable thing to say. So everything has to pass through teachers. And since we are working in school systems, we're not totally outside of them. There are examples of kids that have started to write songs where the teacher peers over their shoulder, is like, no, don't write a song about that. Choose a different topic, because don't do that. It may be a topic that the youth really cares about, but we got to keep them in line, kind of thing. Yeah. And so our stance on that as an organization is that, I mean, of course, I would favor freedom of speech in my own personal beliefs and everything, but as an entity, we're really there to support the the education system. So in a way, we have to align ourselves with the norms of that system. And if we can't be okay with that, we probably shouldn't go to that country, because our business is not to go against the currents.
No, I understand.
It's to go with the currents. So but there's a huge space in there. In Morocco, they would still say we're trying to get the kids to express themselves. It's just within a certain range of acceptable.
Let's talk about the logistics here. How many countries is the organization in right now? Or you work in, I guess?
Yeah, we work in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess seven places for the moment.
Okay. So then you have to have people in each one of those countries kind of lead. You have to have a leader or a director or something like that in each one. So I'm looking at it from the business side of it. How do you do that?
Yes, of course.
So you got to have somebody there that's taking the charge, because you're out doing whatever you're doing, obviously.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned this earlier, because as a nonprofit person, where do you get most of your funding? Is it from the countries? And where would you like to get more money from?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, in the past 10 years, more or less, we've gotten a lot of funding, believe it or not, from the German government for most of our programs in the African continent. And we've gotten some funding from the U.S. State Department. We've gotten lots of small amounts of funding from private businesses or foundations and things like that within those countries. And the place we'd like to get more funding is private philanthropy within the U.S. And even though I've been based in the U.S. for many years, all this work that we've been discussing, I haven't put as much energy as I would have liked into communicating all about that as these years have gone by. So this is really going to be our focus for the next couple of years.
Let's start from the very beginning real quick. So you go into a country and you go, one of the children that goes, and these are middle age. I mean, what's a typical, when do they start? What ages? Are they teenagers, or they start earlier than that?
Yeah, our programs target mainly high schools. So we work with teenagers, adolescents, and then young adults. As they grow out of high school, they stay with our program. Some of them do.
So is it kind of like American schools to a certain extent? You started, started in fifth grade learning how to play a trumpet or clarinet or whatever, but you're older and you come in and you say, oh, I want to go to 88 International, and I know nothing about it. My friend told me about it. What's kind of the course? Yeah, so what's kind of the course that I take if I'm just a newbie to this thing? I just show up and go, I want to learn more? How does that work?
Well, when we initiate a program in a school, we usually come to the school, do some sort of presentation, and then kind of quote unquote recruit students or ask them to join. And then they would form a club, and then they start having club meetings, and we give them certain types of trainings like leadership training. And that's for certain members of the club who are then tasked to keep the club well organized and moving forward in their tasks and their activities as the year goes on. And there is a teacher that's meant to be like a supervisor of sorts, but the teacher's not meant to like lead the club per se. And then they do their songwriting, they do their video, they do some events that they create. And then as we get to the end of the school year, they need to recruit new members because, of course, just like in any school, some students will leave, some students will come.
Sure.
And depending on the makeup of the club at that particular time, they need to assess, do we need to recruit new members or not? And how do we do that? And how many and this and that? And so that's how they would bring new people into it within a particular school. And then, we're working with the government to know, and also depending on how many funds we have, how many schools can we add? Like we spent this whole summer, right after this, I have a meeting with one of the regional governments in Morocco, believe it or not, just to discuss like how many new schools in his particular region can we manage to start next year. And we'll come to we have a proposal for that, like 6 new clubs or something in 6 new schools. And of course, that's all funding. A lot of it's funding contingent. And it's also human resource capacity. How much capacity do you really have to manage these things? But you want to keep it exciting. So there's always some degree of feeling of continuation and growth and something to look forward to and all that. Yeah.
I would think it's fun. It would be for me to go to different countries and hear their different, the way they approach music.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's super interesting.
And I go back to when Paul Simon did his Graceland album, and he went to Africa and spent a lot of time in Africa and started picking up these different types of music. And I think about all the instrumentation, and they probably look at, I mean, yeah, they hear American music, but then you listen to them and go, I would have never did that, because they have a different look and the way their music is put together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it puts together an avenue, and
Yeah.
I just get excited thinking about if I could just bring in
Yeah.
3 people from this to do that, and okay, you guys do that, and we turn into a cultural thing. Because that's kind of the way guy I am. But what are your growth goals, or what do you want to accomplish? Let's say in the next couple of 5 years. What you're probably doing this long enough now. You probably have an idea how far you want to go with it. Because you mentioned something back, maybe even coming to America.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a perfect world, we want to stabilize the programs that we do have that are already up and running. Primarily, I'm talking about the ones in the African continent, and that's 4 different countries. And if we can get those relatively stable, we'd like to start new programs in different places too. We have this sort of high-flying goal. We always said we wanted to go to 88 countries. That's kind of the pie in the sky goal. Mm-hmm. But I thought doing 88 concerts was going to be pie in the sky. Obviously, creating organizations has a lot more to it than just doing one concert. So I would say in the next 5 years, stabilize the 4 countries where we're running. Would love to start something in the U.S. that can interact with these programs and also have their own programs for their own right. And we have other countries we're looking at as possibilities to go to, like Kenya, Jordan. I'm actually in the country of Myanmar right now for our Myanmar.
Is that where you are?
Festival.
I wondered where you were.
We've been working there for about over 10 years. So we have like a strategic plan of sorts as well.
So you got the best of both worlds. You have the best of both worlds, I see. You get to go in and do your thing, as we say, gig. You get to do a gig, and people go, "Oh my God, listen! Watch that guy play. How does he do all that stuff?" It's those 88 keys. But then you get to talk to all the people and bring in kids and introduce them to music, which is always a wonderful thing. So I can see that it's got to be very rewarding, because when you started, you probably had no idea that was going to go as big as it is.
No, not to this level. Definitely not.
Well, I'm impressed that I get to talk to somebody that actually played at Carnegie Hall.
Oh, that's nice of you. Thank you.
Well, and so let me ask you about this. So this is about your music for a change. Let's talk about you for a second. So when you go in and you're asked to do a concert, or you did one back in April, I guess this year, you were at Carnegie Hall. Do you sit down and go, I want to do a certain theme? I want to do certain, musicians I want to perform? Because obviously classical is different than I'm going to do some original tunes. It's not the same.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit how you put that together.
We have a little bit of that sensibility. The last concert, it's called New Perceptions, New Worlds. That's just a fun title. But basically, I had some, let's say, standard pieces of classical music, like Brahms, and this piece by Debussy, where he himself was influenced by a lot of other cultures. And then I asked a composer, another American composer. He's actually from Peru, but became an American citizen. And Huen Chaoke is his name. He wrote pieces influenced by African music on the piano. And so those were his originals. And then I performed some of my own pieces as well. I had some of my own works, which are just short piano pieces dedicated to individuals that I've met around the world, and some sort of like personalized composition where I actually spell their name in musical notes and then use the melody that derives from those notes as the basis for the composition.
I saw this the other day where they did that with a kid. Yeah, it was something I saw on YouTube. The guy had some young girl that was obviously a kind of a genius, and he pulled random letters out of the box and said, "Here they are." And they weren't any, and like you said, when you're doing somebody's name, there's no coherence. I mean, it's not like we're not, it's not like it's going to be a flow, and it's like you have to put things together differently. And I think that's an amazing thing to me to be able to do that. And
it's a lot of fun.
And then the other thing about it is you get to probably perform on some of the greatest instruments made for pianos. I mean, who doesn't know a Steinway? Or, I mean, you get to hear those. And it's kind of like when I heard my first Martin guitar decades ago, I went, oh, now I know why they play it.
It's another universe, right?
It's another universe. So it's kind of like when I go into a house and have a piano, the first thing I do is go over and hit middle C chord, and I go, they don't play. This is not in tune.
Exactly. Yeah.
Looks good, but they're not playing. And
Sort of
and
the
so
piano hygiene, right? Like how well are they taking care of the instrument?
yeah, and I can futz around on it, but that's all. I'm never going to be close to you. And one of my favorite tunes of all time, which is kind of funny, people always think I'm crazy, but because I like Beethoven. Beethoven is my favorite classical, but Clair de Lune, I could listen to that probably 24 hours a day.
Oh,
Listen
lovely.
to that song. I love that song. And
Yeah.
I just watch it and I just go, my God, that's such a great tune. And I'd love to hear it. I've never heard anybody play it live. I've
Oh,
just
really?
seen it. I've seen it
Okay.
on, you know.
We got to take care of that.
Yeah, we'll have to
Yeah.
take care of it.
Yeah.
What can I do? What would you like, the message you like to get out? Because I am heard in 140 countries plus,
Wow. Wow.
close to 4,000 cities.
Amazing.
So they're all over.
Yeah.
What's the message you would like to send to the world, so to speak, when they're listening to this in CERN or, you know, Australia? What's the message you like to get to them?
Music is extremely important. I would say that music connects people. It can transform people's lives. And please follow 88 International. I think those are the two. Or follow myself on Instagram or Facebook.
Well, that's it for this episode of The Trout Show. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Kimball Gallagher. Very, very talented guy. Man, when he sits down at the Steinway, well, what can I say? He's just very talented. Playing Carnegie Hall by himself? Come on now. But more importantly to me, too, is the fact that he started this 88international.org, and he's helping all those young adults in Africa learn to enjoy music, play music. The camaraderie that goes with being a musician is just a wonderful thing to be in. I can tell you, I've been a musician for decades. I've enjoyed it for a long, long time. To help support that organization, just go to his website, 88international.org. That's the numbers, 88international.org. And there's an easy place for you to donate and support that great organization. For more information about The Trout Show, just remember, all you got to do is go to my website, thetroutshow.com. Everything is right there that you need to know. Podcasts, YouTube, music, everything is right there. So once again, thank you, Mr. Kimball, for coming on the show, and thank you for listening. And remember what I always say, it's only rock and roll. But you know what? I sure do love it. See ya!